3 nights, 3 houses, 3 times a babysitter discovered they weren't alone. Only one of them saw it coming. I'm 29 now, and I've had plenty of frightening experiences in my life, but nothing stays with me the way one night from when I was 15 does. It was my first real babysitting job, not watching a cousin for an hour while my aunt ran errands, but an actual paying gig for family friends. The kind where your parents know their parents, so everyone assumes it's automatically safe. Mark and Diane lived in a nice house in a quiet neighborhood with their 5-year-old son, Charlie. Looking back, that's part of why this messed me up so badly. It didn't feel like the kind of house where anything bad could happen. It felt normal, like where I grew up. It was a Friday night in early fall. My parents dropped me off around 6:30. Mark shook my hand like I was applying for a real job, and Diane kept calling me a lifesaver. They went over the basics: dinner at 7:30, lights out at 8:30, keep his bedroom door cracked open. If he needed the bathroom, walk him there because he sometimes got scared in the hallway at night. Mark also showed me the locks. The front door lock they never used because they came in through the garage. The back door was the one I'd need if I stepped onto the deck. He pointed out both locks, the deadbolt up top and the regular lock underneath. I nodded like I understood. A lock was a lock, right? They left around 7. As soon as their car pulled away, Charlie asked to play board games and hide and seek. I talked him out of hide and seek because the house was bigger than I expected, and I didn't want him hiding somewhere dangerous. We played matching games at the coffee table, then a video game in the family room. At 7:45, I heated up the food Diane had left, mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, basically babysitting on easy mode. Charlie ate in front of the TV, which his parents probably didn't normally allow, but I wasn't trying to be the strict babysitter on my first paid gig. After dinner, we brushed his teeth and went to his room on the 2nd floor. The house had a wide hallway running past several bedrooms and a bathroom. Charlie's room was at the end, with a small closet featuring sliding doors. Inside were kids' clothes and storage bins on the top shelf. A nightlight on his dresser glowed soft yellow. I tucked him in, read him a short book, and as I was leaving, he asked if I'd stay in the hallway for a minute. I stood outside his door and listened to him rustle around for maybe 30 seconds. Then his breathing went quiet, and I figured he was settled. I left his door cracked like they'd said. Diane had shown me the guest bedroom where I could hang out once Charlie was asleep. It was down the hallway from his room, closer to the stairs. Small TV, a bed with a comforter that looked never used. I turned on the TV, found some random show, and lay on top of the bed, shoes off, phone in my pocket. The job was basically done. That lasted maybe 40 minutes. I was half watching TV when I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. Charlie stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes, holding a stuffed animal. His face didn't look sleepy, it looked scared. I asked what was wrong. He whispered, "I heard something in my closet." I tried to reassure him. Houses settle. They creak. He shook his head fast, said it was more like a scratching sound. I told him there were no monsters, asked if he wanted me to check. He nodded. I walked him back, turned on his light fully, and looked at the closet. The sliding doors were closed. I slid one open and peeked inside. Just clothes. I pushed a few aside like I was really searching, then slid the door closed. Relief washed over his face. I tucked him back in and returned to the guest room. 15 minutes later, more footsteps. Charlie came in quicker this time, more upset. The closet door moved. I sat up, trying not to show annoyance. Okay, let's go check. We walked back down the hallway. When we reached his room, I stopped in the doorway. The closet door was fully open. One sliding panel pushed all the way to the side. My stomach dropped, not because I immediately thought someone was in there, but because I knew I'd closed it. I looked at Charlie. "Why did you open that?" The tone came out harsher than I intended. He swore he didn't. The way he said it, he wasn't lying. I walked over and slid the door shut, but the way it closed, it didn't feel like it could have drifted open on its own. I gave Charlie a look that said I knew he was messing with me, tucked him back in, left. On the way to the guest room, I caught myself listening for sounds behind me. I told myself to stop being stupid. I was 15 in a family friend's house on a safe street. About 10 minutes later, instead of footsteps, I heard Charlie call out. Not a scream, a shaky, raised voice like he was trying not to yell but needed me. I got up and walked out. As I got closer, I could hear him crying softly. I stepped into his room. He sat in bed with tears on his face. I looked at the closet. Closed. That should have been reassuring. It wasn't. "Hey, buddy, what happened?" He didn't answer right away. He just lifted his arm and pointed toward the corner of the room. I followed where he was pointing. For a second, my brain didn't process what I was seeing. There was a hamper in that corner, and behind it, pressed into the narrow space between the hamper and the wall, was a person crouched down, hiding, making themselves as small as possible. The first thing I saw was a shoulder, then the shoes, then a partially hidden face, but I could see his eyes looking straight at me. The whole thing lasted maybe 2 seconds before my body reacted. I didn't scream, I just decided it was time to move. I grabbed Charlie with both arms, yanked him out of bed, and picked him up like he weighed nothing. I backed toward the door, never taking my eyes off that corner. The person didn't move at first, stayed crouched, like if they stayed still enough, we'd forget they were there. I ran us towards the guest room and locked the door, kept Charlie quiet as I called 911, told the operator someone was in the house, gave the address, said I was babysitting and there was a man in the kid's room. The operator asked if he had a weapon. I didn't know. Asked if we were safe. I said we were locked in a bedroom upstairs. She told me to stay on the line. I kept expecting the doorknob to turn, to feel the door shake. The operator kept talking, keeping me calm, asking me to describe the person. All I could say was I saw eyes hiding behind a hamper. The distant sound of sirens getting closer was the first time I'd ever been relieved to hear police in my life. The operator told me to wait until an officer came to my door and identified themselves. When they finally came upstairs, one knocked and said my name. I unlocked it. 2 officers stood there with flashlights. They'd already done a sweep downstairs. No one. They didn't have to kick the door in. The front door was open wide. Whoever it was had slipped out when I ran, gone down the stairs, and out into the night. When Mark and Diane got home, they arrived to police cars outside and officers in their living room. Mark checked the back door. The deadbolt at the top was unlocked. He looked at me. "Did you lock both locks like I said?" I told him I locked the bottom one. He said the bottom one pops if the knob gets jiggled. That's why he'd told me both. He wasn't yelling, but I knew he was upset. Honestly, he was mostly grateful I got Charlie out. The worst part is thinking about what would have happened if that kid hadn't come to get me. The third time I babysat AJ was the only time I was ever asked to stay overnight. It's also the last time I ever babysat for anyone. I was 17, a senior in high school. I'd watched AJ twice before. He was 8, quiet, the kind of kid who didn't really look at you when you talked. His mom told me he was a loner, kept to himself. She said it like it was a good thing, like the job would be easy. The first 2 times it was. I barely did anything besides heat up food and remind him when it was bedtime. He'd just sit in his room playing video games for hours. The third time was different because his mom asked if I could spend the night. She had to be out of town for work, wouldn't be back until late the next morning. She sounded stressed, like she didn't have options. I said yes, same as before, just longer, more money. When I got there that afternoon, she rushed through instructions at the kitchen counter. Frozen pizza in the freezer. He usually fed himself cereal breakfast. I could sleep in the extra room at the end of the hallway. She thanked me 3 times before she even left. I called up the stairs to let AJ know I was there. He just yelled back a short "yeah" without coming down. For the next few hours, I barely saw him. I could hear video games through the ceiling, gunshots, cars crashing. At one point, I went upstairs to check on him. He sat on the floor of his room, controller in hand, eyes locked on the screen. Didn't look away when I asked if he was okay, just nodded while staring at the TV. At 7:45, I heated up the food Diane had left, mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, basically babysitting on easy mode. Charlie ate in front of the TV, which his parents probably didn't normally allow, but I wasn't trying to be the strict babysitter on my first paid gig. After dinner, we brushed his teeth and went to his room on the second floor. The house had a wide hallway running past several bedrooms. I went back downstairs and tried to watch something in the living room. Around 7, I made the pizza and called AJ down. He came down, didn't say hi, grabbed 2 slices, looked at me with this expression I still can't fully describe, like I'd done something to annoy him just by existing, and went back upstairs without a word. He was acting unfriendlier than usual. I stood there in the kitchen holding my own plate, feeling awkward and unwelcome in a house I was supposed to be in charge of. After I cleaned up, I went upstairs to get ready for bed. The guest room was basic and small. I left the door half open, didn't like the idea of being fully closed in. I was sitting on the bed talking to my friend when I got this strange feeling like I was being watched. I looked up and saw AJ's head slowly move back out of view from the crack in the doorway. He'd just been standing there, looking in. I laughed a little, it startled me more than anything, and called out asking what he was doing. No answer. Soft footsteps went down the hall toward his room. I thought it was kind of funny, just a nosy kid. Didn't think much of it. Around 11, I put my phone down and turned off the lamp, rolled onto my side and closed my eyes. I don't know how much time passed before I felt like I wasn't alone in the room. I opened my eyes and saw a dark shape at the foot of the bed. It took a few seconds to process that someone was standing there. I screamed before I could stop myself and scrambled for the lamp. When I turned it on, AJ stood at the end of the bed, completely still. The look on his face is still hard to describe. Annoyed, scared, regretful maybe, about what he was about to do. Both hands behind his back. I sat up. "What are you doing in here?" No answer. "Show me what's behind your back." He shook his head no. Didn't break eye contact. That scared me more than if he'd yelled or cried. I got out of bed and moved toward him, telling him he needed to go back to his room. When I reached him, I grabbed his arm and turned him slightly. That's when I saw the handle of a large kitchen knife in his hand. I screamed again, covered my mouth with my hand without meaning to. "Get out of the room! Go! Leave!" My whole body was shaking. He didn't argue. He just ran out into the hallway, still holding the knife. I rushed to the door, slammed it shut, locked it, fumbled with my phone trying to call his mom. My hands were actually shaking. When she answered, I could barely get words out. I told her AJ came into my room with a knife while I was sleeping. Long silence on the other end. Then her voice changed completely, horrified, like she'd been expecting something bad, but not this bad. She kept apologizing over and over, saying she was so sorry, she believed me. I told her I couldn't stay there, didn't care about the money, I just needed someone else to come watch him. She said she'd call her ex-husband, have him come right away. I stayed locked in that room for almost an hour, terrified. Eventually, a knock at the front door, a man's voice calling AJ's name. I cracked the guest room door and saw a man I recognized from a photo in the house. He went straight down the hall toward AJ's room without saying much to me. I grabbed my bag, walked past them without looking into AJ's room, and left as fast as I could. I feel like I was this close to becoming a news article about a babysitter murdered by a child. I was 21 when my sister asked me to watch her kids overnight while she and her husband went to a wedding. I'd babysat my niece Emma and nephew Lucas plenty of times before. Emma was 6, quiet, sensitive, Lucas was 9, more talkative but still easy. Normal suburban house, quiet neighborhood. My sister walked me through the routine before they left. Leftover Chinese for dinner, no scary shows, bed by 9. She reminded me Emma sometimes got nervous at night and might call for me. After they left, the kids and I ate in the living room, watched a movie. Totally normal. Around 9, I took them upstairs. Their bedrooms were across the hall from each other with a bathroom in between. I tucked Emma in first. She asked if I'd leave her door open a little and keep the hallway light on. Lucas just rolled over and said goodnight, half asleep. I went downstairs and turned on the TV, volume low. Around 9:30, I heard footsteps upstairs. Figured Emma needed something. I started up the stairs, but before I got halfway, I saw her walking along the balcony toward the top step, standing there in her pajamas, looking down at me. I asked what was wrong. She said I already came in her room and told her to go back to sleep, but she hadn't been able to. I stopped on the stairs. I haven't been upstairs since I put you guys to bed. She thought I was joking at first. She said I stood in her doorway a few minutes ago and whispered that everything was fine. I told her maybe she dreamed it. Walked her back to her room, checked her closet, under the bed, nothing. She settled back in but kept watching me as I left, like she wasn't convinced. About 20 minutes later, Lucas came down, rubbing his eyes. "Why did you come into my room?" A chill went through me. I didn't. He said I stood by his dresser and looked at me, then walked out without saying anything. I tried to keep my voice calm. Maybe you were half asleep. But now this was weird. Both of them said the same thing. Instead of going back to bed, he stayed next to me on the couch. I started really listening to the house. Every small sound felt louder. I turned the TV off. The silence made my ears ring. Lucas noticed. I told him to shush for a second. I heard something upstairs, light footsteps running. Then I saw Emma running across the balcony, racing down the stairs, screaming, "Uncle Dan," over and over. When she got to the living room, she was crying. "There's someone upstairs." She wasn't playing a prank. Those were genuine tears. I asked why she thought someone was upstairs. She said someone came in her room again and said goodnight, but it didn't sound like me. I was internally freaking out, but I told them to keep calm. Didn't want Emma to get Lucas started crying too. "Wait down here, I'll go check upstairs." That was the plan, but I wasn't going up there without a weapon. I went to the kitchen, secretly grabbed a knife, and held it in front of me as I walked back through the living room and up the stairs. The kids stayed on the couch. I made it to the upstairs balcony overlooking the living room. Did a little march as I walked across to try to make them laugh. It didn't work. As I passed the balcony into the upstairs foyer leading to their bedrooms, I heard something in Emma's room. I peered inside, thought I saw something. Someone. I quietly said hello so the kids wouldn't hear. I wasn't expecting a response. In a weird, high-pitched voice, still clearly a grown man, someone said, "Aren't they just so special?" The voice sounded like someone with mental issues, not fully there. I realized what I was seeing in the bedroom was a really tall person standing next to Emma's bed, 6'4" maybe, 6 inches taller than me. My heart was in my throat. I turned and ran down the stairs, grabbed the kids. "Put your shoes on now, we're leaving." Emma started crying harder. I quickly saw why. Peering around the wall up on the balcony was this grotesque-looking man doing peekaboo with his hands toward the kids. Forget the shoes. I ran them outside in their socks. We ran to a house a few doors down with lights on. I rang the bell 5 times. The woman who answered knew Lucas and Emma. I introduced myself, explained quickly. She let us inside immediately. I called 911 and stood on the front porch watching my sister's house. And I saw that man casually stroll out of my sister's house, walk down the walkway, and disappear into the darkness in the opposite direction. The operator told me not to engage, that officers would be there soon. I regret listening. I should have followed that creep.
But realistically, I didn't know if he was armed. Based on his voice, I choose to believe he was mentally handicapped and simply walked into the wrong house. I stayed on the stoop watching until he disappeared down an intersecting street. Told the operator which street he went down. She made it sound like cops would head that direction, but it took so long for them to arrive that he was long gone, possibly into one of the houses nearby for all anyone knows. I went into my sister's house with the police to investigate. Nothing seemed out of sorts. No one else inside. I drove the kids to my parents' house that night. We weren't sleeping there regardless. Somehow there was blame put on me, that the one night I was watching them, someone broke in. But I firmly believe that man was in there before I ever arrived. I didn't unlock any doors or anything. Ever since, my sister and brother-in-law have gone nuts with security cameras, 6 of them, all over the house, inside and out. Honestly, who can blame them? In a world where monsters hide behind hampers and in closets and in the minds of children, the only thing you can trust is the fear that keeps you awake. If these stories reminded you why you always check the locks, show your support. Leave a like on this video right now and subscribe to Winds of Thought. Your engagement helps us keep telling the stories that make you look over your shoulder. Stay alert, and next time a child tells you someone's in their room, believe them.